This is a more slightly in-depth look into the Melodic Moods, how the deck evolved and the process of creating the cards and what went into it. So the very first cards created for the deck came from what was originally an oracle deck that accompanied our popular Waite Tarot in 2019. I really liked how the cards were coming together at that time, but as you can see, a lot of the original art for these cards never made it into what would become the Singer's Tarot. I decided that I wanted to keep the artwork in Melodic Moods as new as possible, but at the same time there were artworks in the first batch that I really liked. Truth be told, I liked all of the artworks for what was then at that time a mini oracle deck. When it came time to put the Melodic Moods together as an actual pack of tarot cards, by that stage I had already drawn another version of John Lennon, with him in his army jacket. Getting back to the beginnings of this deck, I decided to keep Joni Mitchell, Paul McCartney, Jim Morrison, Stevie Nicks and George Harrison. So these were the cards that I had salvaged from the first lot, as you can see here. Hold on. So I kept these and altered the different words. For the most part, I kept the main characters as they were, but just added the song lyrics to each of the cards. So it was hard to let the other artworks go because I really liked what I had done with John Lennon and Janis Joplin especially. At the same time, I wanted to allow a little bit of uniqueness to exist in that early oracle deck, for the purpose of allowing the mini oracle to retain some integrity as a collectible. One that never made it into the original mini oracle deck was Mama Cass and Tina Turner. You're hearing it here first, as I've never really talked about that before. I suppose I just think the other illustrations worked better. Mama Cass eventually made the final cut for the official Melodic Moods, where she appears in the Mamas and Papas card, the Seven of Cups. I'll be the first to admit that it's been a bit of a learning curve for me to set artworks aside and never touch them again. For example, for exclusive kind of artworks, limited edition stuff. There's a natural tendency to want to repurpose some of the work that you're most proud of, the artworks that you feel really are your best work. Years passed and I had what I would call the second wave of artworks, which I think happened possibly a couple of years after the mini oracle deck, which accompanied the Indiegogo Waite campaign. These consisted of the band, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Grace Slick, Guthrie, Roger Daltrey, and Jerry Garcia came next. Santana and John Fogerty of Creedence. Ringo Starr was Ringo Starr as well, and another version of Paul McCartney. It was a bit of a creative period for me, and I really enjoyed drawing these cards. I've got to be honest, I really liked it. At this point I was starting to gather up quite a number of artworks for a potential deck. Time passed and other projects came along which required the Singer's Tarot to take a backseat. In some ways I was okay with that, because it was a pet project. I didn't have a deadline for it. So I kind of worked at it as and when I could over the years. Some time passed and I drew a few more cards. So this would be kind of like the third wave, which was Kool and the Gang, the Turtles, Neil Young, and the new Bob Dylan artwork. At this time also we had the new John Lennon artwork and Steve Perry of Journey, and who else was there? Steve Perry of Journey, Heart, Mick Jagger, and Roy Orbison. I drove all night. Elvis, and Buddy Holly, who never made the final cut. Buddy Holly almost made it in as an extra with Heartbeat as the Ace of Cups, but I decided on putting the Bee Gees in as a bonus card instead as the Three of Swords. After that, the deck started to take off. The planning out of who goes where in this deck was very fluid, almost right up until the point of handing over the artwork to the printer. So you can see all these different notes I have. These were the lineups for who was going to be in the final deck. For example, almost had T-Rex, Children of a Revolution for the Ace of Swords, Love Hurts, Nazareth, Into the Mystic, Van Morrison was almost Six of Swords, Tangled Up in Blue, Bob Dylan. Almost had Ozzy Osbourne in there, Paranoid, Nine of Swords. Again, I was going to keep a lot of these for a kind of a heavy metal rock kind of version. Didn't quite work out, but Tom Petty for the Three of Wands, Waiting, or Cat Stevens, Wild World, Two of Wands. All these various different, we had all these different ideas. This land is your land. So. Horse with no name. Joplin. All these bits and pieces of artwork, all these bits and pieces of kind of the ideas we had, you know. Dream On, Aerosmith, would have been potentially a Nine of Cups. Hard Days and Night, Page of Pentacles, Night Shift. Almost had James Brown as the boss. Sorry, the Emperor with the song The Boss. Johnny Cash, King of the Hill, could have potentially. But I was trying to keep it, for the most part, I was trying to keep it like more, I don't know what the word is. I always felt Johnny Cash was just country, you know, he's just country. That's how I remember Johnny Cash as being, and a lot of these guys, and so I didn't really feel it was the best place to have, you know, some of these singers, but in the end, that did vary a bit, you know. Okay, Boston, Peace of Mind, Queen, we did have Queen. As you can see, there's a lot of planning went into this, and it's really difficult to kind of find the best representations for each card, because a lot of it was focused on the music itself. There were so many bands and singers we could have put into the deck, but all comes down to the songs themselves. A lot of it is subjective, of course, but I wanted to have the lyrics reflect the mood of each card. For example, For example, Go Your Own Way, Eight of Cups, or the Six of Pentacles, He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, which is a personal favourite of mine. I was mainly focusing on 60s psychedelic music, and I think I kind of backed myself into a corner a bit with that, because when you limit yourself to a specific window of time and maybe a specific type of music, it's very, very narrow to find songs that will fit every card. It's normally quite easy to find lyrics that would suit a romantic or love themed card. Songs about destruction or death might be slightly harder, but with the protest songs during Vietnam, such as our Tower cards, Eve of Destruction, or the Two of Swords, Give Peace a Chance, that gave me a bit of a break. Certain cards carry certain moods, and opening up the deck to the disco era, which began with Kool and the Gang's Celebrate Good Times and Strength's I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, allowed the project to breathe a little more. It wasn't a deal breaker, but rather I saw it sort of as an evolution of the project. In my mind, I wanted to strictly keep it to the 60s and 70s, because I had plans to create an 80s deck of cards similar to Melodic Moods. That deck would have had, Cyndi Lauper, Madonna, Bruce Springsteen, that kind of thing. That was why I changed the name of the project to Melodic Moods. In my mind, the deck's always been the Singer's Tarot. But that sounds kind of generic. But then again, so does Melodic Moods. I was really racking my brains for weeks to know what I would actually call this deck of cards. I just couldn't really think of something that would properly represent the project. In any case, the plan was to create a title that was a bit less generic than Singer's Tarot, because I did have a few sequels potentially lined up. In the end, I decided on Melodic Moods. It wasn't specifically psychedelic. It wasn't specific at all, and which for this project it worked. In fact, I had also planned somewhere down the line to create a rock/heavy metal deck, which would feature many of the well-known acts like Metallica, Megadeth, Lita Ford, Black Sabbath, Joan Jett, Scorpions, and bands of that nature. So, although I liked the idea of having Zeppelin's Jimmy Page in our deck as a hermit, I was seriously thinking about setting him aside for a future metal tarot deck, and perhaps replacing him with Simon and Garfunkel with The Sound of Silence. Being a big Led Zeppelin fan, Christine liked the idea of having Page in the deck, so I decided to run with that. In the end, Simon and Garfunkel, like so many others, didn't make it into the deck. That's always going to be the case though, as there are so many great songs out there, and it was the songs mainly that decided on who made it in and who didn't. So Jimmy Page was staying, and because he was staying, we introduced Robert Plant as a bonus card with the song Gallows Pole. I would say the most difficult card to create was the Ten of Cups. There were so many people in the one card, and I think getting their likenesses took a little, or maybe too much, time. Another equally difficult card was the Temperance. I originally had planned to have the Coca-Cola flowing out along with the words at the bottom, but the original had the normal colour of Coca-Cola, and it just didn't look right at all. It kind of looked like sludge, or something a lot worse. So I had to set that one aside for a few weeks until I figured out how to bring some colour to it. I think the rainbow flow looked much better, and thankfully our printer printed it exactly how I intended it to look. Because sometimes when you're creating artworks, and in particular the colour, sometimes the printer just does not get it the way you intend it to. Luckily for this deck of cards, all the colours come out exactly as I intended. So hats off to the printer, very good job. Another difficult card was the Four of Wands. The idea came to me fairly quickly, but I envisioned John Denver sitting on a chair and the road waving in and out around him. I had a few attempts at it, but the road took a while to fully look right. I think with the addition of the trees in the background, it started to come together. Last but not least of the difficult cards was the Two of Pentacles. I couldn't really find any lyrics that matched the mood of the card. Naturally, the mood of the card is balancing usually finances like household budget, things of that nature. Like most people, I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of music, and so you're at the mercy of what comes to mind, what you remember hearing, after you've picked all the obvious kind of songs and famous iconic faces for the deck. You're kind of like, you're coming down to the last few cards, and you're trying to really knuckle down and find other songs that fit the cards. The Two of Pentacles was, I think, the very last card that I illustrated and coloured. The concept was a wee bit hard to figure out for that one, but when it finally clicked, I feel it worked really well. But the difficulty was that Peggy Lee's version didn't have the exact lyrics that I was looking for. Those lyrics were in a version by Sammy Davis Jr., I think, and they go, that line, "I can stretch a greenback dollar bill from here to kingdom come." I saw that as pretty good for the Two of Pentacles, and I thought, I need to have that version in there, but I want it to be Peggy Lee represented in the card. I think visually it works for the card. I stretched out the word stretch and gave the hint of money for the background of that word. It's small things like that I feel adds a bit of human creativity to it in an age where everything wants to involve AI. I've never used AI for any of this deck, nor any of our decks. It doesn't really interest me. Don't get me wrong though, I did use a lot of reference photos to try and get the musicians and singers' likeness, but it is all hand drawn by myself. So, some people will feel I've got the likeness, other people may not. That's fine. The most interesting thing to me with this deck was not even drawing the famous faces, but coming up with an artwork that incorporates both the famous faces and the words to the songs in a way that looks great, almost like a movie poster or concept poster, that sort of thing. Sometimes these are a bit humorous, like the Knight of Cups. That was a difficult one because there was a lot of words I felt needed to be in that card to get the full effect of what is being expressed. I also really wanted to extend that out so it wraps around Justin. With the Five of Wands, I think this is another humorous one. I like the idea of making the lyrics animated, making them visually say something. With the Six of Swords, we have the Sailboat in the Rod Stewart card. With the Nine of Swords, we have the Icy, Chilling, Running, Scared. With Joan Baez's text in the Queen of Swords, we have the Diamonds and Rust text visually reflect what is being expressed. While this is a full tarot deck, I've seen it used as a bit of an oracle deck too, accompanying more traditional tarot decks. Others have used it for things like story prompts, so I think it's a bit versatile. So if you've watched this video so far, up to now, I really appreciate it. I know these videos are kind of longer than what I would normally do, and so I've probably lost most of my audience about now. But if you've stuck in here this far, I appreciate it. But I feel that if you've bought the deck, maybe you are interested in these kind of videos that go a bit in depth into the creation of it, maybe the thoughts that went into it and things like that. And therefore, when I get time, which is not very often, but usually at night time, I'll plot out what I'm going to do for videos and things. It's hard to get the time, but if you like these kind of videos, I appreciate it. So thank you for watching the video. And if you like the Melodic Moods, we still have a few left on our site. And that's about it. Thank you. And like I say, hope you're having a great day.